We are live. It is Tuesday. It is almost 10 a.m. It's 10 a.m. now. Good morning, friends. Glad you are here, or when you join us that you'll be here. It is Tuesday, and we are continuing on in our series of reflections upon the idea of taking every thought captive. This week, I wanted us to take a break from us walking through Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, and reflect upon the damage that can be done when we do not take our thoughts captive. Good morning, whoever's here. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you stayed warm, and I hope you got to enjoy the snow. For this California boy, it's a little weird to have to cancel church for something. Coronavirus is abnormal, so we weren't able to have church gathering, which is kind of weird to say church gathering because the word church means a public gathering, but we use it in kind of a bigger generic sense that the church is the body of Christ, all those things. So good morning, Allison. And whoever else is here with us. So we didn't have our service on Sunday because of the snow, and I hope you got to enjoy it. I know my kids did. It was a nice winter wonderland morning, and it's sad to not be together with God's people, but hopefully you got to spend some time worshiping the Lord and spending some devotional time with your family, and were able to reflect upon God's goodness in the midst of not being able to gather with his people. I know other parts of the country, it happens multiple times a year, maybe, where they have to cancel service because of weather. We don't really have that problem. As a California boy, I never had that problem. I don't think I ever heard of a church canceling its service growing up. Not that I went to church then, but never heard about it and certainly never experienced it. And so new experience for me, just like the 6 inches of snow I think we got. So that was fun though. The kids loved it, and I hope you guys loved it. We got the sled, throw snowballs, talk to our neighbors. It actually was a really good opportunity to interact with our neighbors and say hello to them and get to know them. Like the guy across the street from us, he and his wife were out, and she was shoveling and she was putting out the salt, and he came over and we started interacting, and he was telling me that he doesn't shovel the snow and he doesn't put out the salt because his wife, who grew up in Michigan, likes to do it and tells him to not do it because it brings back a little bit of nostalgia. So it's only happened a couple times, and it's happened once since I've been here. So we'll see what maybe climate change is real or global warming, but you would think the opposite would occur. It was really funny. He was like, yeah, people think I'm a bum because I don't shovel the driveway and clean the sidewalk, but she tells me not to. So it was a really good opportunity to interact with my neighbors. Hopefully you guys had an opportunity to interact with your neighbors and say hello and see them out, maybe just even wave. So that was fun. Hopefully some good memories with the kids. Anyhow, so let's get to before I forget, if you have a baby bottle that you filled up with coins or check or cash, you can bring it this Sunday, or you can drop it by the office one day this week. If you would like. We were supposed to collect them this past Sunday, but obviously you couldn't do that. So this coming Sunday will be the last day for baby bottle collections. Okay. So what I wanted us to reflect upon this week and think about, it's really a tragic story. It's a tragic situation. Breaks my heart. Last week, the international ministry known as Ravi Zacharias International Ministry, an apologetics ministry, had to release a statement regarding their founder, Ravi Zacharias. And it has to do with his sexual impropriety, I can't say that word right now. Apparently, I haven't had enough coffee. His sexual exploits, his actions, and a report that they asked a investigative company to produce, and the findings that they found in it. And it is sobering. It is disgusting is a word that comes to mind. It is terrible. The things that he did and what he went about, and it is sad and tragic. It made me really sad to read all of it. I read the statement from the ministry last week when it was first released, and then I started to read the report and then had to go away from it. I just finished reading it this morning. It's 12 pages long of all the findings that they found and his actions that were just ungodly and unbiblical and downright. Even the world would look at it and say, that's terrible, even from a world standpoint. Not just a Christian who we expect higher standards from, but even from a worldly standpoint, the world would look at it and say, yeah, that was bad. So what I wanted us to reflect upon today is, how does someone who claims to be a believer get to that point of doing these terrible things? And now we take sin into account. We take the depravity of man. We take humanity is prone to sin. But how does one who professes to be a believer do these terrible things? And part of it starts with not taking thoughts captive, not letting this be the thing that defines what is right and wrong for you, not letting this be the means by which you decide whether you should do something or not. By all standards, there is no way that he could reconcile this with what he was doing. And he was manipulative. He was a narcissist, probably. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't diagnose that, but just a ventured guess based on what I read. He was an abuser. Whether he was a believer or not, you judge a tree by its fruit, and the fruit is not good. And just because someone professes a faith doesn't mean that faith is genuine. Not the Apostle James, but the brother of Jesus, James, the lesser, he writes in his book, in the Epistle of James, he writes that, show me your faith and I will show you my works. And then he says, even the demons shudder and say they believe. Like, the demons know that God is real. And so even they shudder, but they don't have faith. They are not in right relationship with God. So just because someone can have a right confession doesn't mean the profession is genuine. So now God knows. I don't know. You don't know. None of us knows. The Lord knows. So we just simply look and say, hey, based on all these things, like there's an inconsistency with what he proclaimed and what he did. So how does one get there, though? How does someone who might be a believer get to this point where they can do such terrible things? How does a believer get to the point where they can have an affair or commit murder or do something that is wrong? Like, how did David, who we know is saved, David, the king of Israel, how did he get to the point where he sinned and committed adultery with Bathsheba and then murdered Uriah? How does he get there? It's because he didn't take his thoughts captive. You know, Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, he talks about if you've lusted after a woman in your mind, you've committed adultery with her in your heart. He talks about when you are angry at your brother, you've committed murder. What? We don't treat it as such, right? But what is the truth behind that? What is the reality? Is that someone does not just wake up one day and decide to commit adultery. There has been a long process of fostering thought that would lead to that action. Same thing with murder. Murder is not just something that happens accidentally. It is something that is a long, intentional process of, or maybe not intentional, but a long process of fostering thoughts that will lead to that action. Even if they're not first-degree murder where it's planned and it's intentional, but it could be things that you foster and think and allow to fester in your brain and eventually will lead you to the act of murder. You see, friends, when we consider our actions, they start with our thoughts. One does not just explode in anger if they don't have anger festering in them somewhere. You don't naturally have a peaceful person, someone who embodies peacefulness and has peacefulness in their soul and in their hearts and their minds just naturally just explode. No, what you're seeing in those acts is like a volcano that is building up underneath. You have the lava building up underneath, and eventually it gets to the point where it has to go somewhere and it spills out. If there's no lava, if there's no tectonic activity that's producing what builds up into the volcano, you never have the volcanic eruption. And yet, we see that in our lives is if we're fostering these things in our thoughts, in our heart, they will eventually spill out. That's why Jesus says it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out of his, because it reveals our heart. The tree may look healthy, but it's the fruit that you judge. And so as we're considering this idea of taking thoughts captive, we have to take thoughts captive that come to us, but we also have to take the thoughts captive that have been indwelling in us our entire lives because of sin and our own human depravity. I don't know if Ravi Zacharias originally was walking down this road and it just never came out until the end of his life, or if something switched along the way and he started fostering it. But either way, he didn't take the thoughts captive. He didn't say if he was 5, and now a 5-year-old maybe wouldn't grasp it. But so let's say a teenager. Maybe as a teenager, he started having these thoughts of grandeur and, oh, I need to be taken care of, and these things, and that were based in his sinful human flesh that was just innate from his birth. Did he take them captive? No, but we need to take them captive. We need to take those thoughts that have been there with us all along captive. And then we also need to take the thoughts captive that come along as we go through life. There are things that we will be told that we should have, that we should desire, that come in from outside of us that we need to take captive. But then we also need to take the thoughts captive that are inside of us. Or as the Apostle Paul puts it in Romans chapter 6 or 7. I hate it when I try to reference a passage and I can't remember. But flesh and blood, they are at war with one another. And we need to let them, we need to take the thoughts captive that maybe have been there all along. They don't just spring up out of nowhere. But we need to take the internal things that are from us, from our birth, our upbringing, our family of origin, and take them captive, those thoughts. But then we also need to take the thoughts captive that come from the world, from outside. And so, friends, it's a stark reminder as we read reports like this of Ravi Zacharias or men like Joshua Harris, who was a famous pastor, book writer, and he started not taking his thoughts captive, or any number of people who have been kind of famous and deconstructed their faith. They have not chosen to take their thoughts captive and assess things according to the Word of God. And so, friends, let this be an encouragement to you in kind of a strange way. because it's kind of depressing and sad to think about that a man who arguably did great things in rhetoric and argument for the gospel and argument for Christianity, and profound apologist that had the ability to see through arguments of non-believers and help that, and just in kind of gracious and joyful ways point out people's inconsistent thoughts. Yeah, he goes and he lives this life of inconsistency. So it's saddening and it's disheartening. But our hope is in Jesus. Anyone else is going to disappoint us. Some will disappoint us more than others. I am sure that you will be disappointed with me at some point as your pastor, because I am human. I am sure that you will be disappointed with the other believers in your life at some point because they are human. Now Jesus was human, but he was also God, so he fully human, but he didn't have that sinful nature. And so, friends, don't let it discourage you, but let it encourage you to turn to Jesus, and let it encourage you to turn to him. Alan is shocked that I will disappoint you all at some point in time. Alan is extremely shocked that I will disappoint you. Anyhow, and so let this be an encouragement to you to take your thoughts captive. Are your thoughts coming in line with this? This is the standard of what we know, what is right and wrong, and we need to let this be the means by whether we assess something is true, good, upright, pleasing to the Father. And so, friends, I hope it's not too depressing, but let it point you and steer you towards Jesus as you press on towards him. Anyhow, that's it. That's all I got for today. I hope you have a great week. We will see you Sunday, because there is no snowmageddon in the forecast, or snowpocalypse. Do we call it snowmageddon or snowpocalypse? Or maybe it changes from year to year. Anyhow, we love you all. We're praying for you. If you need anything, you let us know. And annual celebration in 2 Sundays. So make sure you've signed up for that and plan to join us. We will live stream it if you are not able to be here in person, or if you want to not attend, but you don't get pizza if you don't attend in person. So, because I'm not going to order pizzas to be delivered to everyone's house. So, I think that's it. All right, friends, I will see you Sunday, and I hope you have a fantastic week. TTFN.